Hey everybody, happy Friday. I'm in the basement again. And I meant to give this update kind of midweek, but life happens. And so want to try to do something midweek where it'll be shorter. The ideas will be more raw. It's stuff I'm thinking, it's kind of fresh stuff that isn't all the way baked, but still I think it's worth kind of throwing out there and talking about. So that's what I'm planning to do, and then still planning to do a Sunday, which will be a more comprehensive, complete package type of thought. So tonight I want to talk about technology, but while it's about technology on the surface, it's really not about technology. It's about something else. And as I was going over this stuff and thinking and writing this stuff, I think ultimately, maybe everything I'm putting out there is just asking the question, what is the good life? What does it look like? Where do we find it? How do we find richness and depth? And hey, I'll give the punchline here for this week. We live in a world that is optimized, but it's free of richness, of depth. And how do we capture that again? That's the punchline. So if you want to turn it off, that's it. But I want to talk about technology, specifically about the year, 2010, 2008, that type of thing. After being a pastor for a few years, I was looking for a new job, and I found a job with a e-commerce company. And back then, this is post the original .com bubble that popped. And companies were getting back in e-commerce, and e-commerce it wasn't the Wild West, but there was a lot of trailblazing we were doing, and we were trying to basically figure out how do you sell things online, and how do you have a good user experience. And a lot of stuff we take for granted these days, we were just figuring out back in the day. And one of the things we looked at as a North Star for us was Google. And Google would put out guides and content and information, and we would read it, and we would try to crack the code of what they meant. But ultimately, they were trying to improve the internet space, and by extension, the world. And there were a ton of other Silicon Valley Web 2.0 companies who, while they were very profitable, they were making a ton of cash, they were doing it from the sense of, we want the world to be different, and this technology will enable that. And if you go back to Google's original founding story of two guys in the garage, basically solving the problem of the internet is big, how do we help people find what's out there? And if you flash forward to now, it couldn't be more further from that. Google, in their kind of core values back in the day, was do no evil. And through shifts in leadership, through the old guard moving away or being put out to pasture, getting new, fresh ideas in here, they hired people that weren't in technology, that weren't part of the 2.0 revolution. They hired people who came from companies like McKinsey and consulting firms, and those people said, here's how we can make the most money. Change from how do we give the best user experience to how do we fleece the customers for everything we can. And there's a bunch of great stuff written out there on this topic. It's better than a soap opera for me, but that kind of fundamental shift of user first to profit first typifies what's happening across the web. If you go on places like Reddit and other collection, maybe you read tech news or whatever, there's always an article or a comment about, remember the old internet and how great it was, and what we have now is kind of terrible. And there's a guy named Cory Doctorow, the guy is brilliant, and he coined a word for this. He coined the term enshittification, which is just like a hammer to, it intensifies exactly what this is all about. It names it. Just everyone that hears that is instantly like, yes, that's exactly the problem. Things used to be better and now they're worse. If you look at Facebook as a platform, early Facebook, you would go online, you would see your family, your friends, your connections. You would scroll back a chronological timeline and you would see all of your friends' ideas and posts and pictures and et cetera, et cetera. And now it's a algorithm based, non-chronological, ad-filled product that is barely usable. But we all stay on the platform because the cost to change is so high. You know, we're not going to, it took us 10 years to get Aunt Dolores on Facebook. She can barely double click. There's no way she's going to leave Facebook to something else. If you look at Twitter, same thing. Twitter had a bunch of challenges when Musk bought it. And there was a ton of like, hey, let's go find an alternative platform. And BlueSky was the most commonly cited platform. And while it did get more users, it just, wasn't this massive takeoff. Why? Because the cost of change is hard and people don't want to switch. But the platforms themselves have gone from, oh, this is amazing, I'm going to tell everyone about it, to, oh my God, I can't believe I still use this thing. And that's enshittification. And so, we have these kind of changes in technology of the user is no longer the primary directive. The second thing is we just make them worse and worse to profit. Like those two things are all about profit. Then want to layer on another thing, which I think we all are aware of, but I'm not sure how actively aware we are of this. And that's just the massive surveillance that is done by these tech companies. Again, to fuel capitalism. And so we all, use the stuff and we understand our data is being harvested. We get it. We know it. But most of us, I would say, have some sort of take like, so what? Why does it matter? It keeps the things free, keeps the hardware cheap. Why should I care that my data is being harvested? Or something like, well, if I have nothing to hide, why does it matter? Something like that. Those are, I think, the common objections to it. I'll give you a couple examples. Last year, I bought a Roku TV. I needed a new TV, went to Best Buy. Roku TV, 65-inch 4K TV. I bought it for $275. Amazing deal, right? Like, how do they make a TV like this for so cheap? And, I get it and I install it. I actually really like the TV. It's way better than, I had a Fire TV before, it's way better than that. So I've got it up, and I also put a network ad blocker. It's like a piece of hardware that blocks all ads on my network, or most ads, not all ads. So all traffic on my network runs through this, and it kills ads ideally before we see them on our phones and etc. That type of thing. And so I got the Roku TV. I've got this ad blocker. And I check periodically, like, what's going on with my traffic. It's fascinating to me to see like 30% of internet traffic that is trying to come in and out of my home are ads. And the number one thing that was happening on my network was Roku was trying to call the server. And it was trying to upload a bunch of data about me. And, you quickly see how they can sell a cheap hardware product for so cheap, probably at a loss or maybe even break even, because it is completely supplemented with ads. And I get it, right? It's innocuous if the world knows I'm watching, James Bond or, Lord of the Rings or something like that. What's the harm? Okay, I get it. But also maybe I should have control over that. Maybe I should have a active choice with this. But also, while what I watch on TV might not be the most private thing, what is private is how much money I make or how much money other people make. I'll give you an example. This is Cory Doctorow shares this example. There's an Uber-like app for nurses where you basically put out a gig and nurses can apply. So if you need extra help in the whatever hospital, you can get nurses on demand. And this app, before it offers a gig to somebody, it goes out to a cloud server and pulls their credit score, and it pulls their debt to income ratio. And if they have a lot of debt, it offers them a lower wage because it knows they will take it because they are desperate to pay their credit card bills. That feels icky. That feels like an invasion of privacy. Uber does a similar thing where it offers lower wages to its best drivers. And over time, penny by penny, it slowly gives you less and less and less till your average wage is significantly lower than what it was before. At the same time, they use the data in the opposite way for surge pricing so that it raises the price to the consumer. Those feel more significant uses, unethical uses of our data. But let's keep going. The pricing optimization. Pricing optimization is an algorithm that runs on e-commerce stores that changes the price subtly here and there to maximize the amount of money companies keep, where it can change the price thousands of times a day, right? That's the concept. And then online, I think we're just used to it, or maybe we're unaware that it's happening. It's happening. But it's now starting to get outside of the digital world and go into the physical world with digital price tags. Grocery stores are experimenting with these. I believe it's Norway. They have a thing where in the grocery stores they're trying it. They're on average changing the price 3,000 times per day at the grocery store. Again, that feels wrong. That feels like, oh, wait a minute. This data should not be used in this way, or I should explicitly authorize this data. So, user is no longer first, profit is first. We have this mass surveillance program on these platforms to harvest all the data about us, and that data goes to advertisers. And so I want to continue the thread, and I want to talk about online advertising. So data is collected, goes to like a data broker. That data broker sells that data back to advertisers so that they can create targeted ads. Targeted meaning more relevant ads. So if you here's an aside. If you ever sign up for Microsoft Windows 12 or whatever comes out, there'll be a window and it'll say something like, do you want a more tailored experience? Do you want a more personalized experience? All that is a nice way to say, do you want us to spy on you and use your data to change things? So opt out of that if you care about privacy. So the online advertisers, they buy this data so they can know how much you make, where you live, your household status, all of this stuff, and they can take it and serve you relevant ads, which makes, as a person who does a lot of online advertising, as I'm in marketing, that's my career. I want to buy that data because I want to buy people closest to the goods I'm trying to sell. I want people closest to that. I think the thing we need to think through is we as humans are the evolution slowness of our brains. We've got these lizard brains who were never meant or haven't caught up to speed with how fast technology is advancing. So technology is just, going, like Moore's Law type of stuff. But here we are slow behind, Neanderthals basically. And everywhere we look, every platform is full of advertising. And advertising has gone from keyword based, where it's not, I'm no longer searching for, 2026 Toyota Corolla. Now I'm searching for, what is the best oil for a high mileage car? And it says, oh, wait a minute, there's some intent here. He's got an older car. I'm going to look up his data. Okay, he drives a sedan. And then I'm going to start serving him this new ad for this Toyota Corolla. And this data, this advertising mechanism is on all platforms, in all spaces, everywhere. So watching the Super Bowl on my Roku TV a few weeks ago, and you get the national ads, but every once in a while you'll get an ad that is just like too eerie, too close to your interests. And for me, I mean, in marketing, it's always when I see like Adobe creative ads, I'm like, there is no way Adobe is advertising at the Super Bowl nationally for Adobe Creative. I'm like, this is a targeted ad to me. And it just feels like too much. Seth Godin, marketing guru, who I highly esteem, he says, marketers ruin everything. If you look at Instagram 1.0, where it was a photo sharing app where you could see National Geographic type of photos from users, to what it is today, it is 90% ads and 10% content, and it's enshittified, right? That's the whole problem. So we'll go back through this stuff. So enshittification, user no longer first, focus purely on capitalism and how do we line our pockets, spying on its users, selling its data, serving up numerous ads constantly everywhere we look, to the last rung, which is enabling massive amounts of consumerism, of buying these cheap goods. If you look at YouTube, the influencers are everywhere. And if 10 years ago, YouTube was, hey, watch this skateboard, watch this guy fail on a skateboard. Ha ha ha. Let's send this around. Watch this guy spin around with these lightsabers in his hand. Funny, let's share this. YouTube now is content driven by people marketing products they may not believe in, but the machine has to turn somewhere. If, being in the industry, the amount of content that needs to be produced on a daily basis, it's no longer, make a video when you can. It's make a video every day, post 5 shorts a day, every 2 hours, post on LinkedIn or on Instagram, make sure you're on your story, your reel. It is this unsatiated content machine that is just hungry for more. If you look at shorts, shorts are, the brain rot shorts, right? It is, how do you make 7-second content that will get thousands of views instantaneously? I mean, you put a short out there, it gets thousands of views, like right away, within a day. You can easily get 1,000 views. And it's like this, it's just this hunger that never sleeps. And it blurs the line between, is this real? Is this fake? Is this sponsored? Is this not sponsored? Is this genuine? Like we've shaken up all of these things together and just have this kind of amorphous blob of hollowness, is what I would say. That analogy, kind of weird analogy there, but ultimately it's just vacuous, empty, thin, all of these things. And so much has been, said about consumerism, and we'll talk about it more later, but, cheap fashion, environmental impact. I watched this documentary, and it's like, these clothes are washing up in the shores of Africa. And there's people who are literally starving in Gucci clothes. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. How did we lose the plot here? And to kind of bring it back to where it is, what's the good life? Where is it? Because we live in a world that is optimized, but it isn't a blessing. And some point in our lives, maybe your life now. Maybe you've climbed the ladder, you're at the top of the mountain and you're looking out and you're like, I thought there was something else out here. Is this it? Is this what I sacrificed so much for? Is this why I've got golden handcuffs on my wrist to fuel this consumption machine? Is this the good life, right? Is this where it is? Is this all there is? I think is a great question. Is there something more to life than this? Those are all questions. And we looked at it tonight through the lens of technology, but the symptoms are everywhere. Not just in technology and economic policy, in business culture, layoff. Why do we do layoffs? Why is that the trigger we pull? We'll talk about that more in depth later. In the megachurch culture, why do we have megachurches? Doing there's this Instagram account my son sends me, and it just shows megachurches doing crazy stuff. And it's like, how is there a circus inside the church and there's people on it's Cirque du Soleil at a church, and it's how did we lose the plot so much that we thought that was the gospel? And it's in other areas, which we'll look at the thinness in other areas. So hopefully for you are wrestling with what the good life is, and hopefully you can discover it, and you can find richness and fullness and fulfillment in these other areas. So